Hello.
Good to have you here tonight. All right, so this is a forum on a subject I think you'll all find very, very fascinating. And to let you know what we're doing tonight, I'd like to introduce the president of the Ventura County Interfaith Community, Ms. Terry Helton. Right, lights. So, thank you for being here. This is exciting to see all of you here for an interesting conversation. I'm going to give you a little brief history for those who just maybe don't know about us. Ventura County Interfaith Community has been around since 2005, and it was established to bring understanding between different faiths and to build bridges of understanding, hence the building bridges. And I like to honor some people who are here. My husband was in that room. I was there when it was established. Rabbi Mike, who is going to be tonight moderating, was there. And so we have grown and we do new and interesting things all the time. And in order for you to know what's going on with Ventura County Interfaith Community, please visit vcic.info. That's vcic.info. And you can see past events that have been stored on there. You go to events and it will let you see past events, and you can see future events. So tonight we're going to do this forum on conversion, and it's going to have a little different twist, and I will let our speakers deal with that, and you'll understand what we're going to do. But the sad fact is, we have nothing happening in December. So don't be looking for something in December, but begin to look for something in January. And we will be doing something in January, February, March, and then we're planning something special for April. So look for those times. So thank you for being here. Have I missed it? Oh, I know what I was going to do. I'm going to pass out some index cards, because what I've discovered is I can get a question in my head, and then I hear the next speaker and I forget what my question is. So I'm going to pass out index cards and a pen if you need the pen. If you don't need the pen, don't take it. And then you can write your question down so you don't forget it. So I'm going to introduce our moderator, and that would be Rabbi Michael Lotker, is a second career rabbi, having been ordained at age 55 from the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion in 2003. He is a physicist who spent his first career in alternative energy, focusing on wind, solar, and geothermal energy. He holds undergraduate and graduate degrees in physics from Queens College in New York City and from the University of Illinois. Prior to his ordination from HUC-JIR, the Reform Movement's Rabbinic Seminary, in 2003, he received his Master of Hebrew Letters degree from the same institution. An entrepreneur, he started a number of alternative energy firms, including a wind power development company that installed and operated wind farms in Hawaii and California. He is widely published in the alternative energy field. He is presently Rabbi Emeritus at Temple Nerami in Camarillo, California, the Scholar in Residence at Temple Adat Elohim in Thousand Oaks, and the Community Rabbi for the Jewish Federation of Ventura County. He is a member of the Central Conference of America Rabbis and the Board of Rabbis of Southern California. His interest and participation in interfaith dialogue stimulated his rabbinic thesis entitled Ezer Negdo, is that correct? Conegdo, toward a theology of Jewish-Christian partnership. He is a sought-after speaker at synagogues, churches, and campuses. In June 2014, he offered the opening prayer at the United States House of Representatives. And you know the most important part? He is my friend.
Yes, I agree. There are many wonderful characteristics of my bio, but the best one is that almost all the words are easy to pronounce. As you will see, that is not the case of the people I will be introducing. So we are an interfaith discussion group, if you think about it. And the interesting thing about our topic tonight is that it's where the faiths intersect. I mean, we discuss lots of panels, what do different faiths believe about peace and war and rituals for marriage and death and dying and so on. But here we're really talking about, in a sense, bridges. When there's interest from someone from one faith or of no faith to join a faith that they were not raised in. So that's an interesting process. A month ago we had a discussion where we had, I represented Judaism, we had the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I don't remember the third, or maybe there was just the two of us.
Unitarian.
Sorry?
You.
All right, Unitarian Universalist. So we're continuing that program tonight. And again, the kinds of things that I personally am interested in are, what is your faith's attitude toward conversion? There are certainly faiths that we are familiar with, where the teaching is, you better convert to the faith as I see it, or you're in deep trouble. There will actually discourage or be indifferent to conversion. So that's one question I'm very interested in. What is your faith's attitude toward people who are interested in converting to your faith? And then also, what rituals are there? And what's the procedure for conversion? So we begin with Hinduism, with Maheswara Dasa and Rajirani Dasi, a couple. And I'll talk about Maheswara first. He started investigating Hindu art, culture, and theological philosophy in 1973. He eventually discovered the teachings of A.C. Bhaktivanta Swami, and in October of 1975, he joined the International Society for Christian Consciousness, Hare Krishna movement. Later in the spring of 1976, he was formally initiated by him as a Brahmin priest. He served actively in major ISKCON construction projects, as well as engineering of large parade floats used at annual events all over the world. After moving to Ojai in 1989 and founded the American Vedic Association, recognized as the local branch of the Hare Krishna movement. He and his wife host several events to share the essence of Bhakti Yoga, yoga of love and devotion to the Supreme Lord. They meet every Sunday across from Ojai Farmers Market and speak when invited to do so by those interested in learning more about the ancient teachings of the Veda. And his wife first met the monks of the International Society of Christian Consciousness and the founder when she was only 7 years old. Ever since then, she has been inspired to pursue the science of self-realization shared by him. After college, she joined a temple ashram in London, which was donated by one of the Beatles, George Harrison. She spent 30 years there actively involved in sharing the teachings of Sanatana Dharma, our eternal constitutional position, to the thousands of weekly guests that visited the temple. She also spent over a decade in training as a spiritually based personal counselor. She continues to encourage people from all over the world and has facilitated related workshops and seminars in the UK, USA, Switzerland, and India. So would they please come forward now? Welcome.
Thank you very much, first of all, to Tim and Terry and all of you who gave us this opportunity. We're always honored to be able to do something. So, the topic is Hindu conversion, and actually there's not really such thing as conversion in Hinduism that I am aware of, but we say the conversion more in the sense of converting back our material self into our true original spiritual identity. That's the conversion that we talk about in Hinduism. So, as I say, it's not a matter of converting to Hinduism, but it's a process of releasing the soul from material conditionings. And we are trapped by the demands of material life, which is compared to a forest of illusions. and such as the demands of employment, society, responsibilities to our spouse and family and all that so and so, things like in this world. So we are usually what we say, we kind of stuck in the wheel of samsara. Samsara means a cycle of birth and death and old age and disease. And the purpose of life is to get off this vicious cycle of coming back into this material world round and round again, you know, to free ourselves from going through all these birth, old age, death, disease. And then we have, in this world, we have what we call adiabhatic miseries, meaning miseries caused by natural disasters, miseries caused by our mind and body, miseries caused by other living entities. So we have to go through all of that on top of the birth, old age, disease, and death. So the real liberation, we say, is to release ourselves from that. Yeah, we are surrounded by the elements and consumed by ignorance, envy, attachments, materialism, false ego. And matter impacts us in what we call the three modes of nature. We are constantly under either in the mode of goodness, in the mode of passion, or the mode of ignorance. There are three modes of nature that bewilders us in the material world, we say, according to the Hindu philosophy. And the conversion for us is a matter of like cleaning the heart, cleansing the heart of all the dust accumulated from years and extinction fire of the conditional life. That's a verse from famous verse from one of our books. What is the dust that needs to be removed so you can recover from a false concept of yourself to who you really are? It is thinking that I am a man, I am small, I am a doctor, I am African, I am American Indian, I am an old peasant, I am a superhero, I am lost soul, right? So these are all identification related to our body only, not really related to our true original self, which we say is a soul or part and parcel of God. So the deluded spirit soul is conditioned to believe it can be satisfied by temporary material stimulation. But we say all the material stimulation can only satisfy us in a very temporary matter. Just, it's not something that you can hang on to. It's just very short-lived. Even if you really have a great good life, it ends with death. So it all comes to an end. So the formal conversion process for us requires one to agree. We have what we call conversion in the sense that we take what we call a spiritual initiation, and we take certain vows at that point. So maybe that can be called like a conversion, or we call it spiritual initiation. And we take a vow at that point to abstain from taking intoxications, because we say it will restore our nature, it'll make us patient and austere. And we also abstain from illicit sexual relationships, because that will restore our nature to be clean and healthy. And then we also abstain from reckless gambling, or any gambling for that matter, because it will restore our nature to be truthful and honest. And we also take a vow to not eat animals, to not kill or hurt or harm any living entity unnecessarily, because it will restore our nature to be kind and merciful. So these are the 4 vows we take. And then the cleansing of the soul also includes the chanting of God's names on a regular basis. So while we take the vows to do these 4 things or abstain from these 4 habits, we also take a vow to chant certain number of God's names daily. And then you'll see we usually have what we call beads, a round of 108 beads in which we chant a name. I think the Muslims also have some kind of beads they chant God's names, and the Catholic Christians also have some kind of beads they chant God's names on, so we do that. The beauty of this is that it does not matter which name you choose according to Hinduism. We say chant God's name. It doesn't matter which name you choose, whether you say Allah, Krishna, Adonai, Vaheguru, Allah Akbar, Ahura, Master, Great Spirit, Lord Christ, As long as you're chanting God's name, we say that's good. Because there's only one God, just like we say there's only one sun. And in India we call it the Surya. In France they call it Soleil. In Arab they call it Chand. But we are talking about that same one sun. So here we also say in Hinduism there's only one God. We are talking about the same one God. We may refer to him or call him in different names, but it's the same one God we are referring to. We say it's also misleading to think of yourself as a Hindu, as a Buddhist, as a Jew, as a Muslim, as a Sikh, as an Indian, an American Indian, as a Christian or Zoroastrian, because we say these are all just identities related to this body, temporary. So when false identity and material conditioning is removed, we discover our pure soul, which when unencumbered is eternal. The soul doesn't die, only the body dies. Chit, full of knowledge, it's full of bliss, and it has a spiritual form. So our soul is what we call Satchit Ananda Vigraha. And that's the same for every living entity. So our real identity is we are unique spiritual sparks, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, whom we have an eternal loving relationship with. Okay, in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy,
Go back.
what we call Kali Yuga, we have 4 ages, the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, and the Iron Age. We are now under the age of Kali Yuga, which is called the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. The chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is recommended as the most potent way for us to praise God. So we usually do this, what we call the Hare Krishna mantra. There are different names of God. We're supposed to be, Krishna means the all-attractive person, so it's a very personal name of God. And Hare is his feminine energy. Some people say God is male, or is he female, is he it, or say no, he's everything. So Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We chant like 108 times, that's called only one beat. So we do 16 rounds of that, so 108 times 16. And then chanting can be done congregationally. You probably see lots of Hare Krishna. We go out the street with a whole gang, and we have our drums and musical instruments and kartals, mridanga, and we do chant together loudly. Or we can do it prayerfully by ourselves more quietly. It's called japa. So evidence that one has been converted from material consciousness to spiritual consciousness is you become radiant and very happy. Very often we have people asking a lot of our Hare Krishna devotees, why are you so happy? We see you in the streets chanting and dancing and so joyful. You say, why? You said, yeah, that's the chanting of God's names that we say makes us radiant. Their faces are usually just bright and joyful. Okay, I think I'm fast on the next one. By the way, this was prepared by my husband. I'm just taking credit for it.
And the little typographical glitches are because it's running on apparently a different application, which we didn't test, but it's minor enough.
Okay, so anyhow, the next thing is, there are also more traditional examples of conversion in Vedic culture. Before the days of electricity, the only entertainment in rural India was local plays and hearing discourses from the sages intended to lift one's relationship with God as high as possible. They didn't have markets and all these distractions we have in the modern world. And so the sages dedicated their lives to studying the Vedic scriptures and were therefore most qualified to resolve disputes and lead the people on how to live pious and productive lives. Over time, some sages would get a wide reputation for their vast knowledge. Praksananda Saraswati was such a sage in Benares. He had many followers and he was accepted as undefeatable in logic and dharma. He was very formal conservative, and understood that God was just Brahman, energy, and the universe, and had no personality. This is one of the glitches that's because it's running on a different application currently. When he was told how the great Pandit Lord Chaitanya would dance and sing Hare Krishna in the streets, he invited him to come and explain his actions, which he considered to be very embarrassing behavior for a learned sage. So when Lord Chaitanya arrived, he sat where the attendants washed their feet in humility. He did not feel qualified to sit in a higher place with Praxananda and where his esteemed disciples gathered. When Praxananda heard this, he came to Lord Chaitanya and instead insisted he join them in the main hall, and he eventually acquiesced. He was asked to speak to all who had gathered. Why did you sit in that filthy place, and why are you reluctant to sit with my other students who are very learned in the Vedanta? Why don't you practice yoga, sitting postures, and chant Om quietly to yourself like we do? You must learn how to clear everything out of your head if you seek liberation, so you can merge with the Supreme Brahman. Lord Chaitanya replied, my dear sir, my spiritual master considered me to be a great fool and incapable of studying the Vedas, so he taught me to simply chant God's name. As a quick sidebar, Lord Chaitanya was actually the incarnation of Krishna. He was so interested in hearing or experiencing why Radha loved him so much, he came in the form of his own devotee. It's a whole elaborate philosophical story, which I won't go into now, but he's an extraordinary individual who lived 500 years ago in Bengal. He explained how all of the scriptures are meant to bring one to the stage of pure love for the person God, which is the highest stage of God realization, surpassing God in nature and God in your heart. When one comes to know the Lord's extraordinary personality, ecstasies manifest in the form of herpulation, tears, choking of the voice, breathlessness, trance, and expressive dancing with joy. Lord Chaitanya fully explained the glories of the Supreme Lord as a reservoir of all wealth and fame, all strength, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation. There is no one greater person than he. This is how you can tell who's God. If he has all those qualities and no better than anybody else, that's God. And this is a literal conversion story. Real Brahmins are more attached to the pursuit of truth than clinging to their false ego as learned scholars. When Praxananda heard the deep convictions of Lord Chaitanya shared about the personality of God, he immediately surrendered and requested to be his disciple. All of his own disciples also chose to take up the Bhakti Yoga for the same reason. Praxananda learned from Lord Chaitanya how he had wasted so much time speaking inconclusive, nonsensical talk about Lord's energy. He realized how he had completely missed the Supreme Person, who was the source of that energy and the one controlling it. Realizing the deficiency in the understanding, they joined Lord Chaitanya in the blissful practice of chanting and dancing the Hare Krishna mantra while always remembering the Supreme Lord. There's many paintings like this. This, I don't know if this is going to play or not. Well, no. This is actually a 2-minute video. If later we have a chance, we can play it. It's a huge party. There's probably about 2,000 or 3,000 people in this procession. It doesn't look like it's going to play on this interface. But like I said, we can show it to you later.
And where is that?
This is in Mayapur, West Bengal, just north of Calcutta. And this is just, anyhow, you can't really tell because you can't really see how many people there. It would have been really nice if I could play, but anyhow. So that's the end of it right there. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So the way we will proceed, and I probably should have said this earlier, is we'll have 3 presentations, and then we'll give the opportunity for the presenters to ask questions of each other, and dare I say the moderator to ask questions. Everyone, including people in the audience, so be on your lookout. And then we'll open the floor to questions of others. Our next presentation is on Islam. Muhammad Mehtar is an imam of the Islamic Center of Conejo Valley in Thousand Oaks. He is a regular guest speaker at local colleges and universities and works closely with police departments in order to share a better understanding of Islam. While in Utah, Muhammad have been a part of the yearly interfaith prayer session at the Utah Senate, representing Muslims of Salt Lake City as an honored guest of the various mayors and the governor. He is active in presenting Islam in a mild and moderate manner. Imam Mettar holds a degree in interpersonal and organizational communication. He has also memorized the Quran and has a degree in Islamic jurisprudence from Arabia Islamia, Johannesburg in South Africa. Through his writings, Imam has contributed to the discussion of issues relating to Muslims in the West and is ardent about presenting contemporary Islamic thinking without letting go of core Islamic concepts and principles. He lectures extensively to student and secular groups, with key issues being in the area of personal reform, social reform, protecting the environment from continual abuse, social justice, and the need for continual intercultural and interfaith dialogue. Thank you, Emma.
First of all, thank you very much sincerely for inviting me to mess up your evening. Having said that, right now, one of the words the Honorable Rabbi brought forward was moderate and mild regarding Islam. And if someone used the word moderate and mild regarding pretty much any religion right now, people will say, I think there is something wrong with the picture. Because if you look at religions right now, they have been pretty much throughout, for the most part, hijacked by individuals that are slanting and tinting and tainting the original intention of what religions have been all about. And once you realize that that is what we are seeing on the one hand, on the other hand, we are seeing many of the youth, they are pretty much done with religion as a whole. They'd rather spend the evenings on Facebook or TikTok and Snapchat and have a good time, because they'll say the following: what has religion really given us in today's time? It has, according to them, they don't realize people have hijacked religion. All religion has given us, and by the way, wherever you look in the world, has given us conflict, has given us animosity, has given us superiority over other individuals, over other genders, etc., etc. So we are living in a very bleak aspect or time period, regardless of where we are right now. Once you realize that, and we also realize that humans have a need for something greater than Bentleys and Ferraris and Lamborghinis, something much more greater than just mere education or living a good life. There comes a point in a person's life where they say, I have this desire, this urge to connect with something greater than myself. One of the last statements, the individual prior to me, she made a very good comment. As far as the soul is concerned, and Muslims also believe this aspect, it would live on forever and ever and ever. I will come, I will die. However, as far as how we define how the soul lives may differ, but as far as our belief being, the soul will live forever and ever. So why is it I am to die and my soul will live forever and ever? And the Quran makes mention of the following, where it says, and I'll recite to you a little bit, تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير. That, simply stated, all blessedness and amazingness is for God, God who has power over everything. Thereafter it says, الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. That God has created, He didn't say I created life and death, He says I created death and life. Because from a state of nothing, you become a something. Now some people will say, but why must God create you to take your life away? Number one. Number two, why must even God bring you in this world and thereafter potentially put you in hell or whatever else it may be out there? And God says, لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Your purpose in this world and my purpose in this world is one thing. Our test being that which one of us will do amazing things. You know, when I was coming up from downstairs near the elevator, or as you come in, you see a box over there. And in that box, you saw what was in there, different type of gifts. That was God talking about. Are you going to empower others with gifts without expecting anything back in return? Last time I came here, whenever that was, I remember in the parking lot, they were giving out food to the less fortunate. God is testing you and I. He will test you with food. He will test you with shelter. He will test you with clothing. He will test you with your ability to share ideas. Create a much more constructive environment between yourself and others. So this is what God is expecting of us. Having said that, now I will answer the first question that was brought forth. What is Islam regarding conversion or anything of that nature? And I'll keep it very, very brief, but suffice to say the following. We believe as Muslims, everyone is born as a Muslim. Yeah, I know, scary. But regardless, everyone is born as a Muslim. Because when you're a child, you cannot grab onto this faith versus that faith. Later on, as you mature, your parents make you into whatever you are. Whether it's a Jewish fellow, whether it's a Christian fellow, whatever it may be, it is your parents that make you who you are. And anyone who studied basic psychology realizes the implications of this. If you are a monster, you're not a monster on your own. Somebody made you the way you are. Through the trauma they put you through the choices they made you make sometimes that were not very appropriate, and the list goes on and on. Number two, as I was speaking to some of our guests prior, the Quran makes it known that La ikraha fi din. La ikraha fi din means that there is no compulsion whatsoever in a person choosing to be a Muslim, or for that matter, a non-Muslim. Now you hear this in the media a lot. If you give up Islam, then they're going to do this to you. And if you give up Islam, that is going to happen to you. If you look around right now, there are thousands of mosques in America. Number one. Number two, the only time you see most of them, generally, is going to be on a Friday. And if you want to see the largest crowd of Muslims, you only see them during celebrations. That means the entire year, Lord knows where they are, Lord knows what they are doing. And the only reason why they're coming together is probably the grandma said, I'm going to give them the favorite biryani or whatever it is, and that brings them together. So the point I'm trying to make here is, yet you do not see anybody saying, well, they don't pray, they don't come to worship. As a consequence, there is a great potentiality that they are non-Muslims. As a consequence of that, you don't see a shootout every year. Okay, let's line up all the Muslims that gave up, and bang, 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 we do that. No, it doesn't happen that way. The point being here is the following. Those that wish to be Muslims, welcome, they come in. And those that wish to depart, they depart just as the manner in which they came in, through ease and comfort. But this is not what the media and the world outside has you to believe. Why? And I'll tell you why. As I now begin to wrap. Because to be a Muslim is one of the easiest things, and to become out of the state of Islam is just as easy. Just remember the following. What does it mean to become a Muslim? To believe in one God. That is not rocket science, that's pretty simple, and the previous guest basically mentioned what is God to some extent or the other. So God is this unlimited, unique entity that we do not give any type of shape or whatever to. That's number one. And of course we happen to call God Allah. I know you get scared right now when I use that phrase, but that's fine. You'll get over that. Candies, they chocolates, they enjoy, and you'll forget about that word Allah later on. Having said that, and by the way, on a serious note, that's how we forget about God. Because of all these things that we see out, the distractions from social media, whatnot, it causes a lot of disruption and distraction and takes us away to things that are somewhat inappropriate. So just remember the left hand. Belief in God, belief in angels, belief in scriptures, all scriptures, scriptures from Adam all the way to Muhammad, peace be upon them all, which means that we have to believe in the books that have been sent down to Abraham, books that have been sent down to Noah, scriptures that have come down to Ishmael and Isaac, despite people telling you out there, no, they don't believe in Isaac like this, and they don't believe in Ishmael. Nonsense. If I don't believe in Isaac, I am not a Muslim. If I don't believe in Abraham, automatically I am a non-Muslim. If I don't believe in Ishmael, I am a non-Muslim. We have to believe in roughly 124,000 prophets. That's how many we believe in. And for us to sort of relinquish any of them or make fun of any of them, that's why Muslims, you'll not see them having depictions of even Jesus, peace be upon him. Because the way he is depicted, in some of these movies, for us it is the most wretched thing you can do in how you depict Jesus, or for that matter, Moses, or for that matter, and the list goes on and on. So we have to believe in all those scriptures, including that which has been sent down to the Jews. That's why, on the one hand, you're seeing the conflict that is taking place there, but never can you ever see a Muslim saying, oh, I don't believe in the Jews anymore, or I don't believe in what you call this, the Jewish Torah. Once you say that, regardless of how much you hate an action of an entity, whatever, murder upon babies, women, whatever it may be, it's a reality. Let's not hide from reality. You see that, and by mistake, if you say, just for a second, well, if that's what the Torah teaches them, I don't believe. Imagine if a person says that. If that's what the Torah teaches them, I don't believe in the Torah. Automatically, if you are a Muslim, you can ask the Muslim brother over there, what happens to you? Are you a Muslim thereafter? No. You are destined for what? Say it loudly. You are destined for what thereafter? Say it. Don't be afraid. Hellfire. That's it.
What did you say? Hellfire?
Hellfire. Yeah. Right. Point I'm trying to make is, as a Muslim, that's what we have to believe in as people. Also, we have to believe in, as I come to, wrapping it very shortly, believe in scriptures, which I've made mention of. Believe in heaven and hell. Not because I'm a religious person, I go to heaven. No. I have to also do good things. So even though I'm a religious person, and I'm guiding, quote unquote, so many people, if I have a double life, that means once I leave here, I go partying, clubbing, smoking weed, all those wonderful things in Ohio, or wherever they do all these things. Nothing against Ohio, but you get what I'm saying. Then at that point in time, God says, you are living a double life, and for you, there is now no paradise. May God save one of us and all of us from that. So that's what a person has to believe in, to be a Muslim. Once they believe in that, then they have to do the following. They have to pray 5 times a day, give charity, go for Hajj, the pilgrimage, fast in the month of Ramadan, and also believe that there is one God, and God doesn't have any partners. He's the one and only. And of course we use the word he, but it's not really a gender, etc., etc. So in a nutshell, I've covered quite a few different things on what brings a person into Islam, what brings a person out of Islam. What the media has you believe about this is entirely different. And I'm glad that we had an opportunity to at least share this. And as a final point, not only the media has you believe this, what I have said, in a weird manner, but it looks upon other faiths in no different manner. It has stereotypes about the people of the Hindu faith, stereotypes of the people of the Jewish faith, of individuals in the Christian faith, and the list goes on and on. So regardless, I'm glad that this wonderful church is having this conversation, wherein not only we can understand religion from the perspective of the people of the faith itself, but this dialogue can bring about clarification as to who each one of us remain to be in relationship, not just to ourselves, but God Almighty as well. Again, thank you sincerely for having this, and now I'll hand it over to our wonderful moderator. Thank you.
I don't know a lot of Arabic, but I know shukran. Thank you. So our final speaker is Hari Pothulu. He's a finance industry professional from Thousand Oaks, certified yoga teacher, a trained Dharma ambassador, volunteer teacher of Hinduism and Buddhism in middle and high schools, and a lifelong practitioner of Sanatana Dharma. He has a master's degree in computer science. He is one of the founding members of a book club, Tirumorai, which meets bi-weekly and is dedicated to the practice and research of Rishi Tirumula teaching. He has also founded an organization for the advancement of Murugan worship, which I won't even try to say. He is associated with several organizations such as Ikal Vidyalala and a few other ones. He's a student of Patsupatha Shaiva tradition of Vimarsha Foundation. If only this was Hebrew. He attends regular Dharma services at the Sri Krishna Temple in Newbury Park, East Live Buddhist Temple in Hacienda Heights, and Old World Gayatri Parivar Temple in Buena Park. So I'm going to ask each of you to repeat that before you leave, but thank you. So I'll introduce Harry. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. When you talked about, it sounded like Hebrew. By the way, the Star of David has a very special connection with south of India, and I'm going to start with a prayer that recollects that connection. Uruai, Aruai, Uladai, Iladai, Maruai, Malarai, Maniai, Oliai, Karuai, Virai, Gadiai, Vidiai, Guruai, Varuai, Aruvai, Guhani. That prayer invokes one of the deities that is very important to the Hindu tradition. His name is Murugan, and his symbol is very close to the Star of David.
I forgot to actually point out why we asked you to come and you wanted to.
Okay, go ahead,
So
please.
please stay here because this is important. So this is not just another Hindu presentation, but this is actually the other side of the coin of the world of conversion. Namely, how does the process and the history of conversion affect people who are targeted for conversion? This certainly has had an effect on Jews and Judaism, speaking from a personal point of view, and still does. And so Hari is going to address not only this from a historical point of view, but also from a current point of view. And I apologize for not including that in my introduction.
Thank you, Rabbi. And in the introductory slide itself, I purposely put 3 different days, where it means the same day, today. And these are all 3 different calendars from the Hindu system, and we are all comfortable with it. Whoever is Hindu here, they could figure out what I meant. One starts on a lunar new moon, another full moon, another is a solar one, but that's all fine. The diversity is right there from slide 1 is what I'm trying to say. And as the Rabbi said, I will be delving into the other side of the fence, so to say, and it's going to be really pessimistic, and it's not my fault. Ask Till. He asked me to talk about it. Just kidding. But I hope that this gives you an opportunity for many people to hear what it feels to be in the other side, to be targeted for conversion. Next slide, please. So I will be representing Sanatana Dharma. There's a specific term that I use, approximately called Hinduism, but it has 1,000+ years, maybe many thousands of years of history, has innumerable spiritual traditions. My friends here who went first, they had one of the traditions that they represented, perfectly understood it, but it has a lot of philosophy, rules, exceptions, and rationale within it. Many thousands of years of democracy run wild. Now, see some key thoughts that I am going to represent here. I'm moving it myself. I'm trying to learn this. Cosmic consciousness, divinity, truth, whatever you call is one, but paths towards is many. Acknowledgement of a cyclical universe, birth, death, rebirth, eternally applicable spirituality. The whole world is one, and I'm proud to say that we live by that thing, by that statement. We are the only civilization that gave home and protected the Jewish friends and Zoroastrian friends when they were persecuted. We enjoy having pluralistic traditions within our dharma. We don't just tolerate, we respect that every path is equally applicable to achieve cosmic consciousness or know the truth. We critique and debate without fear for thousands of years, and we always say let noble thoughts come from everywhere. Doesn't have to be just where you are born. And the confluence within the dharma traditions is something we always have been routine, and it was always respectful. That's a huge difference when I see outside of Sanatana Dharma what happens. But now comes the sad part. But I'm not going to be sad right now, even though I'm going to talk about it. But I'm going to talk about not the confluence between the Dharma traditions, I'm only going to talk about predatory conversions. What do I mean by that? Because we come from a tradition where it is, again, we respect every path is equally true. But what is predatory conversion would be unethical practices such as promising someone with free healthcare, marriage, jobs, disaster relief, monetary gifts, or as a condition of conversion, and I can say this happened right there in 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, right in the state I was born. All the coastal areas, okay, you convert, I will give you immediate money for rebuilding your home. That happened right there. Our threat of violence, and it has happened a lot of places in the world, but mostly in India, and this is now growing with social media, coercion, blackmails, and other similar methods. That's what I'm going to talk about. Not when somebody wants to really fall in love or they really want to try something. We come from a tradition that encourages it, doesn't do anything about it, but I'm just going to talk about this. Our sufferings are way too gruesome to believe. I'm playing on the word, it's too good to be true, but this is too gruesome to be true, honestly. For some reason, we don't see the ancient Aztecs or Inca or Greeks or Egyptians in this interfaith council. Hindus alone are somehow magically, miraculously are still alive. There's a reason for it, because it's gruesome. What our co-religionists in the ancient classical civilization went through, we also went through the same thing. I am not even talking about the Native Americans in this country, but I'm just generally saying for the lack of space here. In the next slide though, I'm going to maybe try to categorize it and try to compress 1,000+ years of our gruesomeness, whatever we face, into a few minutes here. The upheavals. First, physical suffering. And by the way, I have a lot of books that I brought in that refer this. It's not my fantasy. It's all documented in either travelogues, by academics, or something else that was written there. 85 million have been killed so far. That's very hard to believe, but that is the truth. 40,000 temples have been destroyed, desecrated, or converted. And 45% of the ancient land where Dharma flourished is gone. Partition of historical India alone caused 1 to 2 million deaths and 15 million were displaced. The whole world rejoiced that I'm just going to say it, I know it's going on the web, just with 2 atom bombs, people were horrified. But the horrifying aspects of human violence continued in India. There's so many countless rapes, I cannot even count. And it's not just in the 20th century. I would specifically called out that everybody here who is just a student of history will know about Spanish Inquisition. It's a common way of referring to something horrible. But there was an equally horrible Portuguese Inquisition in the western coast of India. Almost as brutal as the Spanish Inquisition. Now let me talk about another category, civilizational wounds. Lot of universities and libraries was burnt. I will name just 2, Nalanda and Takshashila. They were the universities where hundreds, if not thousands of Japanese, Koreans and Chinese from faraway lands, from Southeast Asia, came to study Buddhism. It's gone forever. Languages and scripts are gone. Like the Kashmir right now, they had a wonderful script called Sharada. Maybe you can count like 1 or 2 academics who can still learn it. But that was one of the original scripts where majority of northern Shaivism, an aspect of Hinduism, is written. So again, this is the same thing. I'm not sure why this is here, but anyway, this is supposed to be here. Scientific innovation, this is the system here. Scientific innovation has been halted. We are the one who proudly invented, I would say, metallurgy, surgery. All those things are gone for 1,000+ years. And we were under continuous religious taxation and religious imperialism for many, many years. Appropriation and digestion of our ideas is still continuing. I have a lot of examples. Starting from German Indologists who were going there during colonial period and continuing to this day. Then on top of it, it's the victim shaming and gaslighting of history that's still continuing. It really bleeds our heart. Then coming to social and cultural strangulation, our festivals and celebrations are banned. One of the key aspects of any Dharma tradition, whether you're a Sikh or a Jain or a Buddhist or a Hindu, those are the modern 4 categories, but there are many more categories. Ancestral worship is super critical for us, but that has been disrupted, stopped. And my own personal family story, families are torn. Where my cousin's family, very quickly, his mom had a brother who she was the big sister and grew up. But then the little brother, after whatever time, converted to Christianity. And for him, in the new faith, attending his own elder sister, who was his almost mother, was considered as a blasphemy, so he didn't even bother coming to the last rites of his own sister. That's happened right now. I'm telling a first-person experience. Then, especially again, I come from the south of India. We are more darker in color compared to people in the north. Racism, especially for us, has been a part of the colonial experience, whether it's the English variety, French, Portuguese, or Dutch variety. Then the colonized governance, this is the last one. British alone, as per one academic study, stole $45 trillion from the ancient India, from Kabul to Calcutta to Sri Lanka, the ancient India. British alone stole 45 trillion. Innumerable others who came in, the Turks, the Persians, so many other people came in. Some of them stayed, some of them took it back and built Samarkand, Tashkent, and all the glorious cities of Central Asia. The wealth came from here. There is a huge demographic contraction. And to this day, Hindu-phobic propaganda and anti-Hindu narratives have been pushed worldwide. And there is education, again coming from the French and the German and Dutch Indologists who first translated the first thing from Sanskrit to that language, and then it went to English and in Oxford and Cambridge, and now Harvard has taken over the role of this digestion and anti-Hindu phobia or Hindu-phobic academic papers. It is continuing for now 300 years. We call them maculized children. Now, all these things are my references. I know this looks like an academic presentation, but I am forced to do it to show that some of the books that are highlighted are right there. I was fortunate enough to get a hold of a book by al-Biruni himself. He is the court poet for Mahmud of Ghazni. When he came, he was a Turkish warlord who came into the northern part of India. He accompanied it. He wrote first person account on what he saw from a victor's perspective. He was part of the victory march. But he was very surprisingly more academic than even modern day Harvard scholars. He wrote as he saw. That book is right there. Then I also got one of the first Mughal, these are not Mongols as such, but they are like 6-7 generations afterwards they came to Central Asia. Chagatai is the line of the Mongol Genghis Khan, Chagatai Khan's descendants. Babur is his given name. He is Uzbek currently. His own autobiography I have it. He has written again very, very strangely honest of what he saw. Then I have some of other things like Aurangzeb is the last warlord. He has his own official court chronicles who told about this is how this calculation came. He wrote about how many temples he destroyed. So, and then a few other highlighted books that I have put up here if you are interested. But there are other, like the Pakistani newspaper Dawn has published a lot of editorials about forced conversions, even happening to this day. So these are the things that I refer. I would also like to end with Archer Blood. He is the American Consul General in 1971, East Pakistan. First person account, State Department cable that he sent back. That was, I think, Richard Nixon's time, and our friend Henry Kissinger was the Secretary of State, Nobel Peace Prize winner. You can read that in the internet. That's called Blood Telegram. What he saw as a US government official, what the government of America was supporting in Dhaka at that time. You can go through the gruesome goriness of that right there. And a quick time check. I think we have a few minutes. So these are some of the things that, just to say, Bamiyan Buddhas 2001, that was like standing there for, I don't know, 2000 years, destroyed. These were some of the things that are still happening, like 2021. Of all the people, Mahatma Gandhi statue was decapitated and nowhere else. 50 miles from Sacramento, right here in California.
Wow.
It's right there. And this is ancient Hindu temples, modern Hindu temples, and Turkey lost in World War I, but this 35 kilometers from where I was born, so many Hindus were massacred because the caliphate was going away, and then they thought the Hindus were responsible. I'm not making it up. These are all that has happened. But then finally, I wanted to talk about when we say dharma, there are so many religions, so many philosophies. I am here trying to be the most common denominator here. Our friends who came in front of us, they might be part of here, which is the temple I go, but there are so many. The prayer I said was here. We have monism, dualism. Some of our co-religionists don't even believe or don't want to even talk about whether divinity exists or not. They are still part of Sanatana Dharma. That is the enormous amount of, you are talking about a rainbow flag. Imagine a human can only see 7 colors. This is like unlimited colors. That is the amount of experiment with spirituality and divinity we come from. We don't have any qualms from somebody like I go to a Buddhist temple. I have a book that talks about almost extinct southern Indian Buddhism. Nobody else practices. The closest relative is a Sri Lankan Buddhism. They don't talk about God itself. The great Gautama Buddha himself doesn't want to talk about whether what happens after nirvana. So we have a whole slew of religions, philosophies, and we don't have anybody like my kid. He is fascinated with Buddhism. I am not going to say anything about it. And in fact, I went with him and got this from a Thai Buddhist place for his birthday. From that perspective, we respect every other culture in the world to experiment and tell what they know about spirituality. But from this side of the fence, we only see 85 million of us massacred. That is what it is. And for whatever miraculous thing, Greeks, Aboriginal people everywhere, they are not here to talk about it, but I'm here going to say, I am the very first person who shook hands for Thanksgiving. It's coming next week. To the Europeans who came, the Puritans who came, I am representing them too. They are not here to talk about them. The Delaware, the Sioux, nobody in North America is here to talk. I'm also representing them. This is what happens on the other side of the wall. With that, thank you for Ventura County Interfaith Council for beginning this opportunity.
I'll ask you to stay up here with us,
Okay.
and I'll ask the other speakers to come forward. Please, over here. We have room for 4 of you.
Any orders?
No, it doesn't matter. So please have a seat. So first, I want to give the speakers an opportunity, if you have questions or comments on presentations of others. If anyone, just raise your hand if you want to ask a question. Yes, please.
I have a question for the Imam.
And you should speak louder enough so.
I can walk here. And,
Yeah, okay, but it sounds like we have a portable mic. It sounds like.
Hi.
Perfect, thank you.
So I just heard from some internet research, and the closest historical evidence is one of the brothers of Aurangzeb, the last Mughal king of India, Dara Shikoh. He talks about the secret book from Hind or something that he was like looking and equating Upanishads, and he even translated some Upanishads. This is a Hindu scripture to Persian. It was the lingua franca at that time. Do you have any references to the secret book in Arabic language?
Why don't you speak in the microphone, please?
See, what happens generally, we have noticed when
Hold it
individuals
more to your mouth.
when individuals go from one land to another, and there is conquering and all these things that take place, you see a lot of meshing of ideas and thoughts taking place. And that's why you'll see a lot of similarities at times with how Muslims worship from India to that of sometimes that which surrounds them, be it Hindus, Sikhs, etc., versus that of how the people in the Arab world may worship. Like for example, you mentioned the beads, etc. If you hold beads in the Arab world, they'll look at you as an oddball. Like, what are you holding these beads for? It's not that they don't believe in it, but they will really be very judgmental. Whereas if a Muslim from India or Pakistan does it, or Bangladesh, it's totally appropriate in nature. So when you talk of the secret book and all these type of things that people have made mention of, Muslims only follow the Quran. That's one aspect. What happens is, when they go to a given area, and in order for people to feel comfortable, what some Muslims will do is they'll say, okay, well, we are seeing a similarity between, quote unquote, the Hindu culture and Islam. Let's rephrase this given Islamic aspect to make people fit in that given geographic location. The same thing, you brought up a very good point on your slide. In the beginning you mentioned, many people convert, why? For financial reasons, etc., etc. And as a consequence of that lurking in the background, if I present to someone the similarity between myself and them, automatically they'll say, well, you did present a lot of similarities. We don't have all the answers on our side, maybe because of ignorance or whatever it is. Let's jump on board on the Muslim side. And I think when you talk of the secret scriptures, etc., this is what we gather. And this, by the way, has happened many, many times, that there is no such a thing as a secret scripture for Muslims. Ours is an open book, whether it's regarding hadith, with the tradition of the Prophet, and the list goes on and on. Ours is everything open. Anything that is secret is either shunned or misrepresented or brought into for certain manipulation purposes. That's the way we look at it, because there is no such an official document that is out there for them.
Any other questions of panelists for you?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So you mentioned in your presentation that Islam accepts all scriptures, which I believe there's a verse in the Bible that says all scripture is inspired by God. But the ones you listed were all part of the Abrahamic scriptures, the Christian, Judeo-Christian, Arabic scriptures.
We accept all scriptures from Adam all the way down to Muhammad. All scriptures from that point to that point that can be authentically vetted.
Okay, that's why I was asking, because
Yes.
how do you feel about the scriptures from the ancient Eastern world, where the Tao, the Tao, in our case the Bhagavad Gita, scriptures are not part of the three main Abrahamic religions?
Yeah. Our philosophy is wherever they agree on fundamental principles, we have to agree with that, we have no issues. Number two, where they're in conflict, we give preference to Islam. And where Islam doesn't have an opinion, and the opinion on the other side doesn't go against universal values, or for that matter, Islam itself, we have no issue in, I wouldn't say directly accepting it blindly, but we have no issue in being repulsed or going against it either. That's our standard opinion.
Okay. Any other questions, panelists? So I'll just offer first a comment and then some questions. The word religion comes from the same root as the word for ligament. It is what joins. My understanding, both as a scientist and as a rabbi, is we are genetically programmed to be tribal. In ancient times, just literally in our DNA, that I want my tribe to succeed, and if I have to conquer your tribe, that's the way animals do it. That's the way people had in their DNA. I ultimately believe that the purpose of religion is to cause us to recognize that we're all in the same tribe. And I think certainly in the Abrahamic traditions, we are all created in the image of God, therefore we're in the same tribe. And I hear this also from my Hindu friends and friends outside of other non-Abrahamic traditions. So when there's many stories in Judaism about this, if you see someone and you hate them, basically what you're saying is you hate the image of God, because that person is created in the image of God. And ultimately, I think that is the most powerful teaching that we have. So I have a question, let me ask both of the Hindu traditions and the Muslim traditions. Well, for both of you, is there a formal process of conversion? So in Judaism, I talked about this last time, there's a Jewish court, there's ritual immersion, kind of like a baptism, and of course we call it by a different name, but it's pretty much the same. There's ritual for men of circumcision, which is certainly not part of a ritual for conversion of women, but there is a formal ritual. So I'm curious about all of your traditions, the degree to which there is sort of a formal ritual about getting in.
I'll go first. What we tried to convey in our PowerPoint presentation was that actually in order to get to that status that we all see ourselves as one big tribe under one unifying God, we have to give up all those conditionings that we run through. And right now, I'm going to be a little daring here, there's a big problem between Israel and the Gaza Strip, because some people are thinking they're Jewish and some people are thinking they're Islamic. And if they both actually go back to the core, which is what we're talking about today, and realize, no, we're all children of God, and give up those identities which are deeply embedded in who we are, then we can actually unify in that one thing. And I'm a little disturbed because I had a really nice 2-minute slide movie there. And when you go to our temples, in particular our large temple in Mayapur, we have a video of literally 2,000 or 3,000 people all dancing together, chanting Hare Krishna, and they're all from every tradition. They're from all over the world. You can't even talk to them. They have different languages, and yet they can all communicate with this Hare Krishna mantra, and it's a genuinely joyous process. So, like I said, the conversion is not so much join us, it's like drop all those identities, and then we'll naturally all come together as one. As like we say, we're all spiritual sparks, part and parcels of the Supreme Lord, eternal, ever-existing, full of knowledge, full of joy, with a spiritual form. So that's what I do.
Okay, any other comments? Imam, is there a formal process for someone who wants to become Muslim?
As I mentioned previously, there are certain things that brings you into Islam, and there are certain things you have to do as a Muslim. Number one. Number two, if you look at the Muslim number in the world is roughly about 1.82 billion. God himself in the Quran says, إِنَّا خَلَقْنَاكُم مِّن ذَكَرٍ وَأُنثَىٰ وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. That God created you in different tribes, in different genders, etc., different languages, all have one purpose. The purpose is to recognize one another's difference, number one, and together recognize God. That's what humanity is all about. Recognize one another. That's why you speak different languages versus someone else, etc. And primarily to appreciate the greatness of God upon us humans, that He gave us a chance to exist. Also, that brings in a test, that how is it, or how am I going to behave, for example, as you are fully aware, that people in parts of Bangladesh, they make $3 to $5 a day. God is asking me as an individual, when I go with my American passport and American dollars to Bangladesh, how am I going to treat that other individual? Is he or she, regardless of faith, regardless of background, are they less of a human than myself? Or are they at least worthy of getting what is fair in that given transaction? So number one, in this given category, God expects us to be different languages, cultures, etc. That's not the issue. The issue is, how do we reconcile, not only on religious grounds, how do we reconcile on universal values which religion itself must also uphold? And that is the most important thing. I'll just give one final thing. Many Muslims, there's a hadith means tradition. Many Muslims do a lot of good things. They build mosques and they help out poor people, they do all these things. And the tradition of the Prophet says, they will go to God on that given day like a beggar. So people will say, but God, this guy did all these wonderful things. He's supposed to have billions and billions of good deeds as currency. God will say, throw him in hell. And people say, but why? He did all these amazing things. He helped the poor, he helped the sick, he helped all this. God will say, but remember on this day he lied about so and so. Remember on such and such day he cheated so and so. Remember on such and such day He committed fraud. I'm not talking of IRS fraud here, maybe beyond that, but you get what I'm saying. He did all these bad things and he hurt humanity. So as a consequence, all the good things you have done comes down to zero, and now you are going to be punished. So again, conversion is a wonderful thing, but as Muslims we don't really stress a lot of it, because our job is not to convert others. Our job is primarily to reconvert continually ourselves and associate ourselves in a better manner to what God expects of us.
I'd like to add one more thing. In the last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it says, Sarvadharmam Parityajyam Saranam Vraja. And basically, Krishna is saying, after 700 verses of explaining our situation that we tried to show on the slideshow, he says, abandon all varieties of religion. Just throw them all out and just surrender unto me. And that's kind of the ultimate conversion. Just throw out all these religions. Just surrender to God.
I think it's worth pointing out that the word Islam means one who submits to the will of God, if I'm not mistaken, Imam. Please.
My answer would be based on what philosophy or tradition somebody is trying to get into. Like, I'm a yoga teacher. If somebody wants to realize God through yoga, you don't want to hurt yourself first day itself trying to do downward dog or any other position. So there is a specific procedure in a yoga school. But if there is a tradition within Hinduism, I'm just going to call out, it's called Arya Samaj. They do not have any idols, but they go back to ancient Vedic times and only see God through fire and other rituals. There is a formal process that they have to go through. But generally it is called, like if somebody is really serious and want to proceed in their spiritual journey, it's called Diksha. And it changes based on what philosophy is. Even within the Buddhist tradition, whether it's Theravada or Mahayana or Vajrayana in Tibet, the initiation process is different. But generally there is a jump from being a layman to actual serious person. That is when Diksha from a guru happens, and the guru will try to guide the person in that journey.
Thank you. So let me open, oh, you have something, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to add to that. I think my husband explained most of what I was going to say, but like Hari's talking about Diksha. Diksha is when I showed in my slideshow that we took a vow of following 4 principles and chanting such name of. I also have a question for the Imam, if I may.
Sure.
Sure. So Imam, thought I heard you said like everybody's born a Muslim, and you said we become Islam. So I'm trying to understand what does it actually mean by born a Muslim?
Please speak into the mic. I had the same question, thank you.
When a person prior to maturity, prior to the age of thinking, roughly we believe thinking comes into existence when a person is becoming mature enough to be able to control their own destiny. That takes place, depends, around 12, 13, somewhere around there. Prior to that, they are very innocent. So we cannot label them necessarily. Yeah, we may say it's a Muslim child, etc. We're not saying it's not a Muslim child. But the burden of religion is not placed on that individual at that point in time. That means before the age of 12, yes, we will say at 7, start worshipping, start doing all these things. But until that age of 12, 13, it is mainly a practice run. You are not, what can you say, responsible. In other words, if 11-year-old does not, 10-year-old doesn't pray, 5-year-old doesn't pray, there is no punishment. A 5-year-old may have inherited a lot of money, but if they don't give charity, there is nothing holds them back. They don't have to go for the pilgrimage, they don't have to fast. They may do all those things, but mainly it's a practice run. Once a person becomes at the age of understanding and maturity, where they can start making distinctions between good and bad, they know what is right and what is wrong. They know that using obscene language is not a good thing, it's a bad thing. They know how to punish or get punished, and they know how to convey that. At that point in time, now they have to make a decision, and the decision is, what do you wish to be? Now, if you're in a Muslim household, automatically you just do what your parents do. That's fine. And if you're in a different household, then because you can understand all these complex video games, God is saying, now why can't you understand that God is one and God needs to be worshipped, etc. At that point, a decision is made whether they may choose to be a Hindu or a Jewish fellow, or a Christian, or whatever else it may be. That's what it basically refers to.
Imam, when I heard you say that, I thought you meant Muslim in the sense of one who submits to God and a childlike submission to a higher authority rather than Quran and Muhammad, peace be upon him, and all the details. Am I missing the point there?
Until the age of 12 or 13, we believe that although a person is submitting, the person is not cognizant of the submission. And therefore, as a result, so the fine point here is submission has to be something that is cognitive.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that if a person, let's say, is getting epileptic seizures, a person cannot think right, they are in a mental asylum, they can choose to be a Muslim. God is at that point in time not going to say, well, you died as an, or they can choose to be anything they wish to be. But because they are not on that appropriate calibration, whatever faith they are, God will put them into paradise because they don't know. I mean, one day they can get up being a Jew, next day they can get up being a Muslim, next day they get up being a Hindu, and within the Hindu branch and stuff, they can keep on changing, etc. They don't know what they are doing. So in that situation, God will say, because you were not sane, you did not know what you were doing, you did not always distinguish between good and bad, therefore, God will not put that person in a predicament in the hereafter. God will say, you get an honorary ticket to paradise itself. That's in a nutshell how I would.
Thank you. So let me open the floor to others who may have questions, and maybe we can pass a microphone if someone does have a question. Thank you. Anybody have a question? Terry.
First, I want to confirm that's basically a Christian idea too. That
Yeah,
there's
thank
an
you.
age of reasoning, and it's the same idea. So I was struck with this idea of if a Muslim loses favor with Allah, then they are sent to hell. So is there a way to have repentance and redeem yourself from that hell?
I'm glad you brought that up. The main point that I was making is, because I'm a Muslim doesn't entitle me to heaven. Number one. Heaven is a gift from God as a mercy. Heaven is not my right. When you look at it this way, as you've heard from some of the previous speakers, there is now going to be, from the Islamic point of view, like others as well, a continual struggle a person makes till the time they depart. In other words, I have the right to repent, but what gives me that reality that God has forgiven me? Because many times we seek repentance only to go back to that deed, that evil, whatever it may be once again. So therefore, what we are saying here is something very simple, that our job in this world is to live as God expects us to live. Number one, fulfill the rights of God. Number two, to the best of our ability. When we make a mistake, repent. Once we have repented, do not be too confident that I will not go back to the wrong again. If I did that wrong, continue rinsing and repeating. And then leave it to God. And God in the end, of course, we believe deep down that God will forgive, but just thinking that God will forgive is not appropriate, because that makes me very cocky in nature as a human, which allows me now to dominate others, because you know what, I ask God for forgiveness and God will forgive. No, I ask God for forgiveness, at the same time I have to depend on His mercy to attain that forgiveness, and I don't know that will really come until I meet God on the day of judgment. And this is, again, the fine print here is, the struggle never ends until you have departed from this world.
So it's like not taking it for granted.
Exactly. So, yes, you said it in 3 words. I gotta thank you for that.
Was it?
There was another question.
You guys can clearly see Imam is in great demand, right? Everyone is going to Imam for that. You brought a great point, how, in your sense, you started with a mild and softer version of that before you started speaking. In outside world, you call it media or whatever you call, right? The overall image as it's. I know the keywords, the radical Islam and other. You can put proverbs before it. is something being done on the level you spoke today? I have not heard, I'll tell truth right from my bottom of my heart. Very commonly and I have a lot of Muslim friends from that angle, is talking in that sense of, is something being done on a bigger level where we are trying to convey this message more openly, like really pushing it hard, saying the image we have created outside. We keep saying media, we keep saying this, but that's how we are different today, right? Is something being done to, to look at the other side of Islam, if the way you present it today?
He wants to clone you 1,000 times.
Actually, you'll be surprised if I tell you something right now. September 11th that took place in 2001, after it took place, one will think people were repulsed by Islam. People did so much research on Islam at that point in time. We had more converts after September 11 than any time in modern history. Number one. Mosques were giving out Qurans left and right like there was no tomorrow from September 11. When the crisis in the Middle East began, on the one hand we are seeing negativity on the media. Again, there has been this backlash of the amount of people that have converted to Islam after this crisis is mind-boggling. Not only from the members from the Jewish faith that have given up and become Muslim. In our mosque, no less than 5 to 7 individuals converted thereafter. And of course, members from the Christian faith, we don't even know how many. As a matter of fact, when they come to convert, I have to tell them, I'm not ready for you to convert because I don't want to be accused of taking people from other faiths. I actually tell them, come next week. I'm a little busy. No, I cannot do it. Some of them get hostile and say, what's your problem? What are you being racist towards me? So, when I say the media, whatever we are talking is being discussed on a continual basis. Your algorithm will not show you that because it does not see that you are willing to either go towards that, and in order to go towards it, you have to search more towards it. But as far as the reality of what I'm saying is concerned, while we may think that others are not buying into what I have said, the amount of conversions that are taking place, I will say it is catastrophic. If I was looking at it from the other point of view, and it's a reality. And by the way, how do we know this is true? You have no less than 1.5 billion they are using for the past, I think, 10, 15 years. 1.5 billion Muslims. Right now, we say on less estimates, there is no less than 2 billion Muslims. I'll give you another shocker. The amount, anybody knows how many Muslims in America? Any numbers? Anybody can give a number?
6 million?
7 million is being used since I came to America in 85 to the year 2000. How many? They're using the word 6 billion since the year 2000. Do you know why they're not telling you the exact figures of Muslims? We have an Eid prayer that takes place every year. No less than 1,500 people. How many people in Oxnard go for Eid prayers? Any idea? No numbers offhand?
200-300.
Oh, much more than that. The bottom line is, I have noticed since 2001 to now that number 7 million does not change. Anybody knows why it doesn't change? Because they don't want to scare the life out of the Judeo-Christian folks in America. It's the reality. How can a number not change over 25 years? Does that make sense to you? And Muslims pop out babies like there is no tomorrow. It's a reality. So again, to answer your question, the message is out there. It is being shared. It's just that it has not hit the mainstream. While we say, now watch what I want to say. While it has not hit the mainstream, it has hit one thing. Anybody knows what it has hit lately? You got it, TikTok. And that is also creating now and feeding this other narrative that is out there. By the way, I'm trying to be fair. I'm not saying Islam is better or anything. That's not the point. These are the realities that no one wants to talk about.
The other thing I would mention, which is how I understood your question, is there publicity about the rejection of activities like we see in ISIS as representing Islam? And it must be now more than a dozen years ago, there was a very famous letter called the Letter to al-Baghdadi, which was a letter of, I think, several hundred Muslim scholars to the head of ISIS, basically categorically rejecting everything that ISIS was doing as not representing Islam and in fact violating the laws of Islam. But it's not so interesting to the general public to understand that Islam is really a peace-seeking tradition. I hope I represent that correctly enough. Any other questions?
Sorry to be greedy, but I have a couple of questions. For the imam,
You're joking, right? The only reason why you're asking me more questions is I didn't have slides, that's the problem. Slides. So the slides answer everything.
I know that Rabbi Mike mentioned that about the certain rituals on Judaism and conversions, and the circumcision or whatnot. I think he wanted you to also touch upon maybe the Shahada in Arabic, maybe translate in English when someone converts, the testimony of Islam, and maybe our viewpoint on circumcision and whatnot, and maybe for all faiths, how does Islam and Hinduism view the modern caste system?
Modern what?
Modern
Caste
caste.
system in India.
Caste, C-A-S-T, the caste system.
Oh, the caste.
C-A-S-T-E.
Let's take the first question.
What he brought up was, I mentioned over there, to become a Muslim is very easy. Those 5 things you believe in: believe in God, believe in angels, believe in scriptures, etc., believe in life after death, etc. Once a person believes in that, technically they are a Muslim. Now there is a big thing in the world, they'll say to them, well, you got to take your Shahada. Shahada means make a proclamation that you believe in those things. If a person, by the way, nowadays, people don't even come to take the Shahada. There are those that have come to take it in person, and there are many that don't. How do we know? Because we are invited to funerals later on, and then they'll say this person was a Muslim. How did they become a Muslim? They did it on YouTube. So once you believe in those given things, technically, right now, if you believe, don't do it if you don't want to. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, once you believe in those things, all the way from Adam to Muhammad being the messenger, scriptures, all those few things, automatically you are a Muslim. Once a person is a Muslim, then there come certain things they have to do. If they don't do it, it does not mean they are non-Muslims. Just like you don't pay your taxes in America, I'm not talking about Donald Trump at all. Just because you don't pay your taxes, you're still an American citizen. Not a very good one. Same thing with Islam. So Shahada basically means a proclamation, accepting one God, and accepting all those things that I have said. Number one. And number two, there are certain action things they have to do. Some may do it, some may not do it. In the ideal conditions, they should be doing it. Regarding the aspect of circumcision, etc., that is if a person becomes a Muslim. Well, a person is born in a Muslim family, by the way. They're born in a Muslim family, then there are certain things that takes place for a male. If a person becomes a Muslim at an older age, even age of maybe after, let's say 7, 10, etc., then those rules have to be re-evaluated. Re-evaluated because now that person is older. I mean, you don't want to take away that person's functionality for the rest of his life. God knows a mistake could occur, something of that nature. The doctor says, no, in this case we cannot do it, then they will not do it. But absolutely, if the person is a mature adult that converts to Islam, then there are certain things that person will not have to do, including, for example, the aspects of circumcision, etc. There is one thing that comes out in the media a lot. Well, Muslims circumcise their females, the women. No, that happens only in specific countries, not because of Islam, but because of cultural aspects. Anybody knows which country is that does it?
African countries.
Yes, exactly. And is it the Muslims that do it over there? You got the answer for that? No, it's not.
Christians.
Yes, exactly. So again, stereotype is one thing. The religion has something else. I think you have follow-up questions for others as well. Let's do this.
I'd like to address the question about the caste system. The caste system that we see in India today, it's been there for quite a while with the untouchables who do all the real nasty work, is not actually, the caste system is actually there in the Bhagavad Gita, but it's a completely different concept. And it exists in every culture. For example, there's 4 divisions: Brahmins, which are the priests and the intellectuals; the Kshatriyas are the warrior class; the Vaishyas are the mercantile class; and the Sudras are the labor class. And they're considered like the head of the body, the arms are the Vaishyas, the stomach is the Vaishyas, the arms are the Kshatriyas, the stomach is the Vaishyas, the mercantile class, and the legs are the working class. Chaturvarna Mayashishtam Guna Karma Vibhaga Shaha. It's right there in chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita. The problem is, just as Europe went through lots of changes in the Catholic Church, and there's all sorts of corruptions came in, the same thing happened in India, and the Brahmins became very proud because they were the heads, and they said, well, we're the leading class. But it got, and then the only way you could be a Brahmin is if you were born into a Brahmin family. And that is not at all what the Bhagavad Gita says. It says it's based on your qualities. It's very similar to what Martin Luther King said, do not judge a person by the color of his skin, but the nature of his character. So similar, if you have the character of a Brahmin and you are willing to behave like a Brahmin, which means you're expected to behave a lot better than the rest of the average people in the street, then you can actually be accepted as a Brahmin. That's not necessarily very popular in India today by the Brahminical class, who sort of had a monopoly on it. The same thing is true with like the Kshatriya class. Some people are very good at being police officers and very good at going to war. But if you don't have that nature, we've heard the term going postal. That's when somebody's put into a post, and I have no problem with the postal department, please don't take it in a negative way. But it's a very simple job. I mean, it's a very routine type of a job. Some people are very good at routine jobs, factory workers and stuff like that. You put a Brahmin into that kind of a job, they're going to go nuts because they have a very active brain and they're very curious, and they have that curiosity and they have all these qualities. So each one of these fields, you have a certain nature. A Vaishya is a person who's the kind of person they'll put their whole house in, they'll mortgage their whole house to start a business that may fail, and they're okay with that. I don't have that nature. I don't have the nature of a Kshatriya. I don't have the nature of walking up to people and say, what are you doing? If you're a police officer, that's what you do all day long. So these four divisions are there in every society. You can look wherever you go, to the Aborigines in Australia, you go, every society from the beginning of time, they have these four branches, and therefore Krishna says, I created these four branches. But it's not what's happening in India today, so don't make that mistake.
So, I'm not pointing you, but even the question that came out for caste is an example of the gaslighting that has been going on for the last couple of 100 years. The distinction between by occupation existed then, it exists even now in IRS tax code. If you are a military veteran compared to short-term, long-term capital gains, IRS differentiates your tax return. It's a kind of caste system. That even 50 years ago, many of us in this room would not be allowed in any country club. That was an indirect caste system. When the Irish came, when the Italians came, they were not allowed into the country clubs. That was a caste system. Last summer, I was in Croatia, trying to go and visit the birthplace of Tesla. The Orthodox Christian Church in Croatia is the third one in the last 100 years. The previous two was burned down by Catholic Croats. And I'm talking about Southern Slavic Croats burning Southern Slavic Serbian Orthodox Church. Again, that's a caste system right there. The differentiation that people come in, whether it's the tax code or tribal or whatever, is always there. It was always there in ancient Zoroastrians, who are our closest cousins. It was always there in India. What is different is, India alone is gaslighted. The differences that naturally occurs everywhere is exploded purposefully for nefarious purposes. There has been bad experiences, like the Serbian church that I went through. The Orthodox priest comes in and then goes away. It's just 2 months ago I was there. He doesn't want to live there. But that's an Orthodox church right there. Anyway, long story short, whatever Maheshwara said, I'm not disputing it. It's there. It was more, I would say, Varna, based on occupation. Blue-blooded German Weimar Republic traditional soldier might be naturally pulled into serving Nazi German army. That was a caste system right there. Because his father served in the army, the son goes there. Even now there are so many generations of Marines and veterans. Oh, my grandfather fought in World War II, I want to follow the tradition. That is the creation of a different word called jati, which is the, I would say, the miscalculation of the Varna system, more like a tax code. So anyway, caste itself, final point, is not even an Indian word. It's a Portuguese word called casta. It was one more colonial implementation, not this time the British, they came later, but it was the Portuguese who invented the word caste and superimposed on what was happening in India.
Thank you. I have no idea when we're supposed to stop.
It's time.
We should be.
One or two more questions.
Can I have one more question?
Okay.
I want to. You haven't had a question.
Yes, she had a question.
Oh, who else had a question?
I'm sitting, I don't usually get to do this.
I thought there was somebody else who.
No, she's waiting for.
Okay.
Oh, but I can pass it to her, but I really want to bring this back to the beginning of this evening, because you, the Hindus here, Mashvar and Rajrani, you said how, you talked about illusion, and you mentioned illusion for our spouses, our work, our employment, all of that. That is also an illusion? So how are life's duties an illusion?
You're getting a lot of walking.
That's okay. You can exercise, yeah. Yeah, so we say everything related to what we call this temporary bodily identification is an illusion in the sense that it's not our eternal identity, it's our temporary identity. That's all it means. But it doesn't mean that you don't do your duty as a spouse or father or mother. You have to do that very diligently. That's like good karma to do that. You know, to act righteously is very important. But
I just wanted to add, it kind of fits to your question. It's interesting what the Imam says. The Islamic people see everybody born as a Muslim. We actually say the same thing. Everybody's a devotee, a Christian, you just don't know it. And the reason why you don't know it is because you're covered over by all these false identities. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a citizen of America. No, you're not any of that stuff. That's all temporary material conditioning. Doesn't mean you don't have responsibilities while you're here. You need to be aware of that. But what you really are is a pure spiritual part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and your eternal occupation. Sanatan Dharma means your eternal natural condition. It's not all these other things. It's what really is. So the essence of the human being is you have to serve somebody. You have to serve your husband, you have to serve your family, you have to serve your nation. We say ultimately serving God is the proper way to fulfill that Sanatan Dharma. And don't get distracted, as Muhammad said here many times, Imam said here many times. There's all of these distractions. I like the concept you were saying about the cell phones and all the stuff that people are getting distracted by. It's taking you away from realizing your real identity is you're an eternal servant of the Supreme Lord, and everybody is in that relationship. Most of the time, you're not aware of it because of all of the distractions. So everybody's ultimately a devotee of God. And you can call yourself a Muslim, you can call yourself a Hindu, you can call yourself a Jew. Those are all the labels, but you're actually not those distinctions. You're just a pure spiritual spark. It's Satchidananda Vigraha.
Well, I want to, in closing, thank my colleagues and friends. I have a better understanding of my own religion by listening to others.
That's not fair. She wanted to ask a question.
Sorry?
She still wants to ask a question.
There was one more question
Up to
in the
Terry.
audience. If it's- Oh, one more question. If you
Okay.
guys are okay.
Yeah, we didn't see it.
One more.
I didn't see it.
Thanks, Bobby. First, I just want to thank all of you for being here. It's actually what holds a community together. I'm a member of this group, but I'm also in the media, so I get to understand where problems come from. And I have for lifetimes been trying to create a world based with one word. And I'm wondering if this one word is common to all of you, and the word is peace. okay? So my reality is, and we all should be cognitive, that there are those who don't want this. They profit from it, whether it's medical, military, etc. So I've created a concept, and hopefully we can all think together, to make peace profitable, to actually make sure that everything all of you are doing can be recognized as beneficial. So I just wanted to let you know that it's the freedom that we have to choose each of the paths we take, but every one of you is 100% right. We are individual spiritual beings. And I would ask you if peace is a commonality for each of you.
Is there anybody here who doesn't feel that it's a common?
We always end Dharmic prayers with Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shanti is Sanskrit for peace. Peace from making sure that you're peaceful to yourself, peaceful from what others can do to you, and peace from what the universal powers can do to you. So it's right in our DNA.
Thank you. I like the husband and wife debate that goes back and forth.
Actually, there's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita that addresses, I don't know it exactly, but it basically says, once one understands the reciprocal relationship we have with the Supreme Lord and our role in that, then there will be happiness. And without happiness, how can there not be? Without peace, how can there be happiness?
Peace is like with the common denomination that we are all God's children. That's it. One God, and we are all His creation.
Thank you.
And recognizing it, and I think people who know me, and part of the reason why I'm part of the Interfaith group here is that I make it a pretty much a weekly habit, or a daily habit actually, to going to all of the different faiths. We go to the Jewish synagogue once a week, and we've been to the different mosques, one in Oxnard and one in your mosque as well. And we'd probably come more often if it wasn't so far away, frankly. That's the only problem. We've been to many different denominations in the churches. There's so many. And the fascinating, like I said earlier, there's a verse, I think 2 Timothy 2:16, 2:13. It says, all scriptures are meant for the improvement of man, for reproof, and for understanding your relationship with God. And if you actually take that literally, meaning, that's why I was asking earlier, Imam, all scriptures, and he answered very nicely, yes, if they're going to help us learn more about our relationship with God, why not? And I've had many people, and I can say for myself, I'm just always fascinated at how I'll go to these different denominations and I'll go, wow, I just had another deep realization about my relationship with the Supreme Lord that I wouldn't have had if I didn't go to hear what they have to say. And one of the things I love about the Islamic tradition is they pray 5 times a day.
We pray all day long too.
So we only pray 3 times a day, but we do pray for peace in all of our prayers. And Imam, did you want to add something? No.
No.
I don't
There
know.
was one economist that said something very beautiful. He said, the amount of resources we spend on our military installations on a global level, if we spend just a fraction of that on peace,
Yes.
we could transform this entire universe into a much more better place.
Yes.
One also, if I may just say, when Muslims greet one another, they make salam. The word salam, what does it mean? Assalamu alaikum. Greetings upon you, peace upon you. What does peace upon you mean? I'm not going to slander, I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to cheat, I'm going to be good to you, I'm going to be honest to you, I'm going to be faithful, I'm going to be kind. Every meeting we take part in, we say, salutations upon you, greetings upon you, and not just upon you. The word kum, the Arabic word kum, means upon you and everything that is related to you, including your family and your future progeny that I have not even seen. The point is, again, religions are talking about peace. It's about time people themselves reduced becoming pieces and became whole, as one of God's names in Islam is Ya Salam. Ya Salam means, oh, the peaceful one. And if you can reflect upon just these simple things on how to become whole once again, but in order to do that for others, We have to start beginning with ourselves.
So we are building a peace museum in Santa Barbara, so I
Right.
need all of you to help.
By the way, many people might probably know this, when Indians greet each other, they always go namaste.
Yes.
It's a very popular word, and what that means is, I am offering my respects to the God that is within your heart. It's a very high greeting. It's a way of recognizing that you're approaching a spark of God, and you should be very respectful of that person.
And of course, the Hebrew equivalent of Salam Aleikum is Shalom Aleichem.
Yes.
It's identical, and the word Shalom comes from the word for wholeness. So I want to say, one of the things I learned is how unsuccessful Jews are in conversion. So one of the ideas that you gave me is offering bribes. So I think we should start offering people who want to become Jewish a jar of gefilte fish and a bottle of Manischewitz wine. And I guarantee you we will not be successful.
First, I want to say I'm appalled that anybody would offer money to convert. I was just shocked. So that is not part of a normal Christian theology.
In California, I did a house, if you convert a Hindu right
That's
now.
crazy.
Get a house.
Anyway, so saying that, I don't know about you, but this has been one of the best nights ever for a forum. And I really appreciate all of you being here, being brave enough to do this. Thank you, Hari, for bringing a different perspective that was very much needed, because it opens our hearts. And Imam, your honesty, and Marishwar and Rajarani, and the idea that we can see each other and see a piece of God within each other when we're reminded of that and bringing peace. So again, thank you. Please fill out the surveys, because this us bring this type of forum. If you will give us the ideas, we can seek how to do that the best way to serve each other and to grow in each other's understanding. And I really believe with all of my heart that this is the future of peace, is when we can sit and listen to each other and communicate and hear with our ears and our hearts and our minds. So until next time, may peace go with you.
I'd like to thank some Scientology.
Oh, we'd like to thank the Church of Scientology for hosting us.
Thank you. Robin.